Hey there, I'm Sabrina, and I have an incredible story to share. My husband Austin and I met 5 years ago at a charity event. We fell in love at first sight and started a wonderful journey together. We got married 2 years later and worked hard to build a comfortable life. Even though we worked long hours, we always made time for each other because we treasured every moment together. But then, something terrible happened. One night, I came home feeling really sick. My body felt weak and I couldn't think clearly. I thought it was just a bad flu that would go away with some rest and medicine. But as days went by, I got worse instead of better. Breathing became really hard, like something heavy was on my chest. I tried to take deep breaths, but it felt like I was suffocating. It was so scary being alone at home with no one to help right away. I managed to call Austin, even though my hands were shaking. "Baby, it's me. I need you to listen. I'm really scared. I'm not feeling well." "Darling, what's going on?" "I don't know. I can't breathe. I feel so weak and alone." "Stay calm. I'm on my way. Just lie down and try to take slow breaths. You're strong, and I believe in you. Help is coming." "I'm trying, but it's getting harder. Please hurry." "You're not alone. I'm doing everything I can to get there quickly. You need to stay strong for me. Take slow breaths and try to relax. Help is on its way, I promise." "Baby, I love you. Please don't let me go. I don't want to leave you." "Don't talk like that. You're going to be okay. Just keep holding on. I love you too, and I need you here with me. We'll get through this together, I promise. Just keep fighting." Austin didn't waste any time. He asked his friend to call an ambulance and rushed to get help. Every breath I took felt like it could be my last, and time seemed to slip away. Finally, after what felt like forever, I heard banging on my door. I was so weak that I could barely move, but I knew help had arrived. I let myself drift into darkness, hoping that the doctors and nurses would save me. It was such a scary moment, lying there, not knowing if I would survive. When I woke up, I found myself in a hospital room surrounded by white walls and the beeping of machines. To my relief, Austin was there, his eyes bloodshot from crying. "Austin, I'm so glad you're here. What happened? What did the doctor say?" "I'm always here, my love. The doctors are still doing tests to figure out what's wrong. They gave you medicine to help with the fever, but they need more time to find out the exact problem." "I'm so scared. I don't know how much longer I can handle this. What if it's something really serious?" "I know you're scared, love, but we have to stay strong and patient. The doctors are doing everything they can to figure out what's happening. We need to trust them and their knowledge. It's just not knowing what's wrong that's really hard. I don't want this to be life-threatening. I just want to be healthy again." "I want that too, my love. Remember, we're in this together. No matter what the doctors find, we'll face it together. I'll be right here supporting you through it all." "Thank you, baby." Days passed, and dread and hopelessness engulfed me. Austin wasn't allowed to be in the same room with me because they weren't sure of my condition. Nevertheless, he called me every morning and evening, faithfully checking on me. But the fear of the unknown weighed heavy on my heart, and I felt isolated. Finally, on the fourth day, the doctor approached me with a diagnosis. "Doctor, please tell me what's wrong with me. Did you find out what it is?" "The test results are back, and we have a diagnosis for you. It appears that you have contracted a rare form of tuberculosis." "Tuberculosis? Does that mean I'm going to die?" "No, Sabrina. Please stay calm. We caught it at the right moment, and there is a cure. With the right medication, we can treat it successfully." "Oh, thank goodness. So it can be cured?" "Yes, after 3 weeks of taking the medication, you will no longer be contagious. However, you will need to continue taking the medication for the next 9 months to completely get rid of the bacteria." "That's a relief to hear. Thank you, doctor. I'm so glad we caught it in time. But what about my husband, Austin? Is he at risk?" "We took precautions. Austin has been quarantined as a preventive measure, and we tested him for TB. Fortunately, his results came back negative. You can rest assured that he is not at risk." "Thank you, doctor. I'm so grateful that Austin is safe. We'll get through this together." After my discharge from the hospital, I returned home feeling weak and vulnerable. The financial burden of the hospital bills and the costs of medications weighed heavily on Austin. He worked long hours to ensure we could make ends meet, leaving me in need of someone to take care of me during my recovery. It was then that Austin suggested his mother, Harriet, as a potential caregiver. "Baby, I get why you want your mom to help, but I'm not sure it's a good idea." We've always had problems, and I'm worried it could make things worse for both of us. I know, darling. I get that you're worried, but she's our only family, and I trust her to take care of you. And believe me, it would make me feel better if someone I trust is looking out for you. I know, but Harriet and I get along like fire and ice. What if her being here just adds more stress to everything? I don't think either of us will have the energy to deal with her shenanigans. I know our history with my mom hasn't been great, but she's still my mom, and I believe in giving her a chance. It would mean a lot to me if you could try to let her help us during this time. Fine, baby. I know family is important to you. I'll do my best to put aside my worries and give Harriet a chance. We'll figure it out together, I suppose. The mere thought of depending on Harriet sent a wave of worry through me. Our relationship had always been strained, like two opposing magnets that repelled each other. Our personalities clashed and our differences seemed irreconcilable. I often felt judged and unsupported in her presence, as if my choices and opinions were constantly under scrutiny. Harriet's presence had a way of making me feel small and insignificant. Her remarks and comments were often laced with disapproval, leaving me doubting my worth. It seemed like no matter what I did, I could never meet her expectations or gain her acceptance. Our interactions were filled with tension and a constant undercurrent of unease. But at that moment, when I needed help the most, I felt trapped. I had no other family to turn to for support. My parents had passed away, and I had no siblings. The only other person who could have come to my aid was my best friend, Chelsea. I didn't want to burden her with my troubles, so with a heavy heart, I reluctantly agreed to let Harriet take care of me. I knew that accepting her help came with its own set of challenges. It meant putting aside our differences and finding a way to coexist for the sake of my recovery. It meant swallowing my pride and opening myself up to the possibility of disappointment once again. But I had no other choice. I needed someone to be there for me, even if it was someone as challenging as Harriet. Little did I know that the path ahead would be filled with frustration and disappointment. Harriet's assistance turned out to be far from what I had hoped for. Instead of providing the care and support I desperately needed, she seemed disinterested and negligent. I found myself navigating my recovery largely on my own, struggling to perform simple tasks while feeling utterly alone. Each day became a battle against my weakened body and the emotional toll of feeling abandoned by the person who was supposed to take care of me. I kept my silence, not wanting to burden Austin further with the added stress of our strained relationship. It was a lonely and disheartening time as I longed for compassion and understanding that seemed beyond Harriet's reach. One day, I needed help getting to the bathroom. I was feeling particularly weak and couldn't do much by myself. I called out to Harriet for help but was met with silence. Growing frustrated and desperate, I decided to take matters into my own hands. Using the support of various things in my room, I made it to the bathroom. Once I was done, I managed to get out only to be greeted by Harriet. At that moment, I felt a surge of anger course through me. "Why are you in my room? I already took care of the problem myself. I never wanted to take care of you in the first place. I'm sick and tired of having to be your caretaker when you're perfectly capable of doing it yourself." "What do you mean by capable? Don't you see how much I'm suffering?" "Suffering? You don't know the meaning of suffering. I've had enough of this. I'm packing my bags and leaving." My heart broke at that moment. Why was she being so cruel to me? Couldn't she see how much I was suffering? I couldn't bring myself to say anything because I was still reeling from the shock of her words. I tried to protest, but my legs gave out from under me. She just looked at me with disdain and, instead of offering aid, Harriet abandoned me, leaving me there. I lay on the cold, hard floor, sobbing uncontrollably, my heart shattered. Hours later, I awoke to Austin's frantic shaking. My body was trembling, and my temperature had soared. Austin rushed to get me back onto the bed, administering my medications with a mix of concern and anger. "Where is my mother, darling? What happened?" I don't know how to say this, but she left. I called to her to help me get to the bathroom for half an hour before I finally dealt with it myself. Then, when I was done, she came into my room and said such cruel things to me. She told me she never wanted to take care of me and that she was done. I can't believe she would do that. "I'm so sorry, my darling. I can't believe my mother would treat you this way. It's not fair to you, especially after everything you've been through. You don't have to apologize for anything, my dear. I can't understand why she would be so cruel. I'm sorry for burdening you with this." "My love, you were never a burden to me. I love you, and I hate to see you hurt. I'll talk to my mother and make sure she knows how unacceptable her behavior was. You deserve better, and I promise to stand by you through it all. Thank you, baby. In a desperate attempt to find help, Austin called my best friend Chelsea, and she agreed without hesitation to care for me for the next week. With Chelsea by my side, my recovery progressed smoothly. Finally, I regained my health and decided it was time to address Harriet's situation. Just as I resumed my job, Austin called me with startling news. His mother, Harriet, had been involved in a car accident, breaking both her legs and an arm. I asked Austin what we were going to do, and he admitted he didn't know. Harriet lived alone, and there was no one else to care for her. At that moment, a decision crystallized in my mind. I would be the one to take care of Harriet. When I arrived at the hospital to pick up Harriet, she snapped at me, demanding to know when Austin would come to look after her. I smiled calmly and explained that I would be her caretaker since Austin was too overwhelmed with work. Harriet's shock was evident as she realized the tables had turned. As I cared for Harriet, I made sure her life was just a little more inconvenient, a gentle reminder of the pain she had inflicted upon me. These inconveniences were minor, not harmful, but infuriating. For example, I knew how picky Harriet was with her food, so some days I would purposely cook dishes I knew she hated or oversalt her food a little. Whenever she settled down to watch her favorite TV show, I would misplace the remote, causing her to call me to help find it, but I would conveniently be busy with a chore at that moment. Sometimes, I adjusted the volume just slightly, forcing her to strain her ears or reach for the remote she had finally found. It was a small act, but it spoke volumes about the power of inconvenience. In the mornings, when she craved a steaming cup of coffee, I would accidentally use her favorite mug and leave it unwashed. She would have to settle for a different cup or spend time cleaning her treasured mug. These small disruptions might seem trivial, but they served as a reminder that actions have consequences and thoughtlessness can lead to inconvenience. I also made sure that the items she needed were just slightly out of reach. If she desired a book from the shelf, I would place it a little higher, prompting her to stretch or ask for assistance. It was a subtle way of reminding her that dependence on others requires humility and gratitude. While these actions may have seemed petty, they allowed me to regain a sense of power and control. It allowed me to assert myself and emphasize the importance of compassion and understanding in our interactions. Harriet began to experience firsthand the frustration she had subjected me to during my illness, and perhaps she started to understand the consequences of her behavior. Through these subtle inconveniences, I hope to create an environment where Harriet could reflect on her actions and recognize the value of empathy. I wanted her to realize that it is our responsibility to treat others with kindness, especially when they are vulnerable or in need. As the weeks turned into months, Harriet's physical injuries began to heal. But something unexpected happened. Instead of showing any growth or empathy, she began to display entitlement and dissatisfaction with the care I provided. She called Austin, complaining that I wasn't taking good care of her. Concerned by his mother's complaints, Austin came over that night and asked her what was going on. "Mom, I heard you've been complaining about Sabrina not taking good care of you. What's going on?" "Austin, let me tell you, she's been doing a terrible job. I can't believe I have to rely on her. She's been so neglectful." "Well, I understand you're frustrated, but let's not forget how you treated Sabrina when she needed you. She stepped up to care for you despite your differences. She showed compassion and support even though it wasn't easy for her." "Well, she should have done better. I don't see why I have to be grateful for her help. You should have done better for her too. With the way you treated her, I'm surprised she didn't cause you any harm. A little neglect from her is better than her abandoning you, isn't it?" I didn't realize. It's time to acknowledge Sabrina's efforts and be grateful for what she did for you. If you're going to be disrespectful and unappreciative, then maybe you should find help on your own, just like you made us do for Sabrina. With that, Harriet scoffed and turned her head away, throwing a tantrum like a child. While Austin may have entertained it earlier, he got sick of always playing to his mother's demands. He grabbed my hand, walked out the door, and drove us back home. While I didn't expect Austin to stand up for me, I was beyond grateful that he did. It felt good to have the man I love reciprocate his love for me in such an obvious manner. In the days that followed, Harriet's absence became palpable. She didn't reach out to us, and we didn't make any attempts to contact her either. We wanted to give her space to reflect on her actions and determine if she was truly ready to change. Through a chance encounter with one of Harriet's neighbors, Austin learned that she had hired someone to assist her. However, it became apparent that the hired help was treating her in the same dismissive and neglectful manner that Harriet had treated me. Austin and I learned of this with a mix of disappointment and understanding. We had hoped that our experiences would have opened Harriet's eyes to the importance of compassion and empathy, but it became evident that true transformation is a personal journey that cannot be forced upon someone. In the end, we made the conscious decision not to intervene. Our focus shifted toward nurturing our relationship and building a life filled with love, understanding, and support. We chose to create a space where forgiveness and growth could thrive rather than dwell on the past or engage in further confrontations. As the days turned into months, Harriet became a distant memory. The wounds she had inflicted upon us slowly faded, replaced by the joy and fulfillment we found in our renewed bond. Life presented us with new opportunities, and we embraced them wholeheartedly.